Not everything has to be monetized. Not everything has to be done in public to be valid. So if you are telling stories for yourself or for those, around you, your family, then yeah, you are a storyteller.
Hey everyone, this is Ronnie with Daybreak Star Radio, and I am so thrilled to bring you a new interview with a very talented author of The Unfinished, Cheryl Isaacs. Cheryl, thank you so much for being here and speaking with me today. Before we dive into our conversation, if you could please introduce yourself to our audience, give a little bit about your background, including what great nation you hail from.
So I'm Cheryl. I'm from the GTA around Toronto. My father's family is from the Six Nations, Mohawk. Woo! I'm an educator, I'm a writer, I'm a runner. My books tend to be about creepy, scary, eerie things, but the dog is always safe and nothing too bloody happens. So good creepy, good creepy.
Good, that's kind of works for me. Too bloody
Okay.
doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So, first question is, can you recall, the moment or experience that first ignited your love for storytelling?
I remember writing stories, when you're in kindergarten and you draw the pictures and your parents say, "Oh, can you tell me about this?" Because it looks like nothing. That was when I first started telling my stories, where I think my first story that I ever remember talking about it was about a rabbit who had adventures with vegetable friends. I was only like 5, so my early entree, but I definitely did always have a vivid imagination, and I was read to a lot as a child. My mom was a teacher, so I don't remember a time when I wasn't creating stories, whether it was just in my head or actually writing them down just for my own amusement. Yeah.
So what draws you to the horror genre?
I think it was maybe one of my dad's shinier parenting moments. He let me read his copy of The Shining when I want to say 12, but I have a feeling that it was probably closer to like 10, which FYI is way too young. And I think that really shaped not just my writing, but I think my personality. I just tend to see not dark things, but maybe different things. I like to look at little places where our reality and another reality could potentially overlap, the things that you think you see out of the corner of your eye, but you're not really sure. I think, yeah, I've always had that kind of personality, and my dad's negligence just kind of nudged that in the horror direction. But some of my stuff, I'm kind of surprised that it's labeled as horror. Because to me, it's not bloody, it's not gory, it's not like super dark, but I don't know, maybe that says something about me rather than my work and my worldview.
I can understand that, but no, I get where you're coming from, though. It does sometimes feel, is it really horror if it's not as gruesome as some other things, not everything has to be Saw.
Exactly. I think there are a lot of subgenres within horror, definitely. And you just find your little niche and get comfortable in it.
So
Yeah.
speaking on that aspect, what kind of unique perspectives do you try to feel that you're bringing to your horror genre?
Unique perspectives. I don't know. I think everyone has their own unique perspective, and that's part of the challenge with writing, like finding your voice and how to express your vision in a way that other people can understand and enjoy. Because really, when you think about it, writing is like crazy. Like I'm taking pictures out of my head and I'm trying to recreate them for you. So I don't know that I have any special perspectives for horror. Like I don't have tragic backstories or anything, but I think it's just that's my voice. Better for worse. That's the way I see the world.
Well, when it comes to your voice, could you, maybe walk us through your writing process a little? Like, do you have any certain rituals or routines that help you stay inspired and stuff like that?
So I'm kind of what's known as a pantser. I'm not a plotter. I don't have a really organized kind of process to my writing. I love sitting down with a blank document and just going to it. I do need a warm beverage. I do need a window nearby. I do have my special collection of pens and notebooks that I think many writers share this illness of a love for stationery, whether we use it or not. Um, but I like to write notes and notes and notes and little fragments that end up scattered all over the house, that I will pick up later and realize, yeah, this was the beginning of chapter 4 when I just got out of the shower and wrote something down. So for me, a lot of actual like handwriting, just when the moment strikes, um, is the only thing I need. I can do it pretty much anywhere. I don't need a special chair or a mascot or anything. I'm
I
easy.
understand
I'm
that.
easy.
I almost, for that whole answer, just it almost made me feel called out, but at the same time, kind of vindicated because a lot of people give me crap about my writing and how it's everywhere and how much stationery and pens I have. And I'm like, but they're mine. They help me.
They help. They are your emotional support pans, and you can
There you
never have too many.
go. Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, in what ways has your indigenous heritage shaped your approach to storytelling and the themes, you explore in your work?
In a couple ways, like particularly for children's literature, when I go into bookstores and libraries, I mean, obviously there's not enough, but I see a lot of picture books, for example, for from the viewpoint of Indigenous kids, but it's always kids who grow up, with their grandparents or in community speaking the language. And I really felt like there was an underserved demographic of people like me who didn't have that support. They didn't grow up in that situation. And I wanted to kind of write something that would allow those kids to recognize themselves and not feel like their experience wasn't valid because through no fault of their own, they didn't have this experience growing up. Um, so to speak to that, and I mean, there is not enough Indigenous literature in the world, not just for Indigenous readers, but I think for anybody. My book is not. Um, I don't want it just to be marketed to other Indigenous people because in a way, like you might see yourself there, but I think that it's important for people to read widely and read outside their experience, and that includes if you're not Indigenous, reading about, hey, this character is, and they might have some differences from you. They might have grown up slightly differently, but what's different does not outweigh or invalidate what is the same about everyone's experience.
What is the impact you hope your stories have on your audience, particularly, within the horror genre?
I went into this and I just want to write my creepy little stories. I'm not I'm not I'm not interested in changing the world, but I do want to bring a different kind of perspective to people, or to offer, I guess, a different perspective to people. But really, these stories need to go somewhere. So, and people are apparently enjoying them. I just want to add my little 2 cents to um, the world and maybe add a slightly different perspective, a slightly different way of seeing things or framing things. And yeah, just bring some awareness of yet another perspective that should be talked about and should be accepted and not kind of pushed aside or belittled.
Writer's block can be a challenge for just about everyone, for many creatives. How have you learned, if you've had to, how have you learned to, overcome it and stay motivated?
I have had it, and at first I didn't recognize it for what it was. I blamed the story because I thought, okay, this story just sucks. Of course I can't, make this breakthrough. But I just tend to keep writing. And if I get stuck on this story, then I just put it aside because there's always another one. Like right now I have about three going. So I just find that rotating them for short periods of time, like no more than a couple of weeks, but sometimes it's like your friends and family, you love them dearly, but you need some alone time, you need some time apart. And when I come back to it, I either find that the problem has worked itself out in my mind and I can keep going, or I'm just so excited to be back with that story again that it kind of gets me over the hump.
We know that you have another book coming out later this year. I was hoping maybe you could tell us a little bit about that and any other projects that you may be working on that we should know about.
So there is a sequel to The Unfinished called The Others, and that is coming out on September 16th, I think, so far, if the date hasn't changed. I'm also working on an adult horror. That always sounds dirty when I say it, but just, I mean, you know, not
I get
YA,
it.
not for kids, you know. Um, so hopefully that we'll be able to find that a home, and that is a little bit darker, a little bit more disturbing. And then I do have a short story in a YA anthology, the legendary Fry Bread Drive-In, which has a whole bunch of amazing authors that is coming out, I think, in this summer.
What advice would you give to Native youth who dream of becoming storytellers?
I would say if you dream of becoming a storyteller, you likely already are a storyteller. So do not wait for someone to give you external validation because you already are. If you have that urge to tell stories, I would say then focus on your format. Do you like to write? Do you like to tell stories through, visual, through video? Do you like storytelling through performance art? But if you want to be a storyteller, yeah, you already are, and you just need to do it for yourself. Is perfectly acceptable. Not everything has to be monetized. Not everything has to be done in public to be valid. So if you are telling stories for yourself or for those, around you, your family, then yeah, you are a storyteller.
And I'm wondering what it is you hope audiences will take away after seeing you perform a live show.
I want people to cry. I want them to feel it, and I want them to feel seen. The bigger the crowd, you want them to be like vibing. But for me, what I really, really love is the smaller, intimate performances where I can talk to